The air over Israel was heavy, thick with the dust of 40 years of oppression. Under the iron thumb of the Philistines, the tribe of Israel lived in the shadow of fear.
No razor shall touch his head.
In the rugged foothills of the town of Zorah, a man named Manoah of the Danite tribe walked with a heavy heart. His home was quiet, too quiet. His wife, whose name history has kept in shadow, bore the silent grief of barrenness. In those days, a silent womb was a source of profound sorrow. But the heavens were not silent.
As the woman sat alone in the fields, the sunlight suddenly shifted. A figure stood before her, not a man, but a messenger of the Most High, radiating an authority that stilled the wind. His voice was like grinding stone and flowing honey.
Say, I love you.
You have been barren, the angel declared, but that season is at an end. You will conceive and bear a son. The woman trembled. The angel continued with a command that would define
This
a
false
legacy.
god falls!
Drink no wine, touch no fermented drink, and eat nothing unclean. For the boy shall be a Nazarite, consecrated to God from the very moment of his conception. No razor shall ever touch his head. He is the one who will begin the deliverance of Israel.
Overwhelmed, the woman sprinted to Manoah, her words tumbling out in a breathless rush. Manoah, a man of steady faith, did not doubt, but he sought wisdom. He looked toward the heavens and pleaded, "Lord, let the man of God come to us again. Teach us how to raise this boy who is to be born."
God honored the father's heart. The angel returned,
If anyone ties
appearing
me with 7
again to
fresh
the woman
bowstrings
in the
that have not been
field.
dried, I'll become as weak as any
When
other
your
man.
words come true, Manoah asked, his voice steady but respectful. What rules must
Priest
the
Eli,
boy
there is an
follow?
uprising in the south.
What
An
is his
uprising? Tell me
mission?
more. The people are in open
The
rebellion.
angel's gaze was piercing. Everything I told your wife, she must observe. The instructions stand. In time, the cry of a newborn shattered the silence of Manoah's house. They named him Samson. As the boy grew, it became clear he was no ordinary child. The blessing of the Lord rested upon him like a visible mantle, and in the camps of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol, the Spirit of the Lord began to stir within him.
The Nazarite vow is a sacred promise to God to abstain from wine and grapes and to
As
let
a
your hair
young
grow as a
man,
symbol of your devotion.
Samson's eyes wandered where they should not have. In the Philistine town of Timnah, he saw a woman. She was the enemy, yet she captivated him. He returned to his parents with a demand
There it
that
is.
broke their
Flesh is
hearts.
gone.
Like a ship's
I have
hull.
seen a woman in Timnah. Get her for me
I
as
gave
my
your
wife.
wife to your best man because I thought you
Manoah
hated her.
and his wife were dismayed.
Terrible soul!
Is there no woman among our own people? They pleaded. Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson's resolve was like flint. Get her for me. She is the right one in my eyes. They did not know.
Samson, you must
that a
tell me your
higher
secret.
hand was
Please,
moving.
Samson. Tell me the
This
truth.
desire, though flawed, was being used by the Almighty to provoke a confrontation with the oppressors. On the journey down to Timnah, Samson walked ahead through the lush vineyards. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a terrifying, guttural sound. A young lion, muscles rippling and eyes wild with predatory hunger, lunged from the brush. Samson had no sword, no spear, but in that heartbeat the Spirit of the Lord fell upon him with a roar louder than the beast's. With a surge of supernatural strength, he seized the lion. He tore the predator apart with his bare hands as easily as one might snap a dry twig. He left the carcass in the tall grass and told no one.
What is
Not
sweeter than
even
honey?
his parents.
What is
of the
stronger than a
miracle.
lion?
Weeks later, returning for the wedding, Samson passed the spot. Curiosity drew him to the lion's remains. Within the dried ribcage, a swarm of bees had built
If you
a
had not
hive.
plowed with my heifer,
Gold,
you would not have
thick
solved my
honey
riddle!
Dripped from the carcass. He scooped
Samson,
it into
the
his
Philistines
hands,
are upon you!
eating as he walked. Sweetness pooled from
I set the wager.
source of death.
30 linen tunics and 30 sets of fine clothes.
Weeks
Samson,
later,
this is dangerous.
returning for the wedding, Samson passed the spot. Curiosity drew him to the lion's remains. Within the dried ribcage, a swarm of bees had built a hive. Gold, thick honey dripped from the carcass. He scooped it into his hands, eating as he walked. Sweetness pooled from the source of death. At the wedding feast, surrounded by 30 Philistine companions who were more like guards than friends, Samson's wit flashed. "Let me propose a riddle," he challenged. "If you solve it
This
during
time I
these
have a
7
right to get
days
even
of
with the
feast,
Philistines!"
I will give you 30 linen garments and
I
30
must be
sets
alone.
of clothes.
Samson, wait!
If you fail,
This solitude
you owe
is what
the
I
same
seek.
to me. Tell us your riddle," they sneered. Samson leaned
The spring
forward.
is restored.
Out
I name
of
it
the
En
eater,
Hakor, the caller's
something
spring.
to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. For 3 days they paced in
No
frustration.
razor has ever
By the
been
4th
used
day,
on my head.
their frustration turned to malice. They cornered Samson's bride. "Coax the answer from him," they threatened, "or we will burn you and your father's house to the ground. Did you invite us here just to rob us?" The woman became a weapon.
The gods have
For the
forsaken us!
remainder of the feast, she wept on Samson's shoulder. "You hate me! You don't love me! You gave my people a riddle and won't even tell me the answer!"
Again, with strength!
Samson resisted
Good,
until
one more!
the 7th day. Worn down by her relentless weeping, he whispered the secret. She immediately fled to her countrymen. Before the sun set on the final day, the Philistines stood before Samson with smug grins. "What is sweeter than honey?" they asked. "And what is stronger than a lion?" Samson's eyes burned. "If you had not ploughed with my heifer, you would not have solved
The era
my
of the
riddle."
sword is changing, child.
The spirit
we need
of
more
the
than just
Lord
muscle. We need the
surged
word.
again. He descended to Ashkelon, struck down 30 Philistines, stripped them of their fine clothes, and threw the bloodied garments at the feet of the men who had cheated him. He returned to his father's house in a rage, unaware that in his absence, his bride was given away to his best man. When the heat of his anger cooled, Samson returned with a young goat as a peace offering for his wife. But her father barred the door. "I thought you hated her," the man stammered. "I gave her to your companion. Take her younger sister instead." Samson's face hardened. "This time I am blameless in what I do to the Philistines."
You will
He
listen!
went into the wild and captured
I hear you.
300
We will find
foxes.
justice.
He tied them tail to tail in pairs, fastening a flaming torch between each knot. He released them into the Philistines' standing grain. The horizon.
I have been a Nazarite, dedicated to God from my mother's
olive
womb.
groves and wheat fields. The entire economy of the Philistines turned to ash. When the Philistines learned why Samson had done this, they took their revenge not on him,
Let me feel
but
the
on the
pillars so I
woman
may lean
and her
against them.
father, burning them to death. Samson's grief turned to cold fury. Since you've acted like this, I will not
Years
stop
later,
until
in the
I
hills of
have
Zora,
my
the
revenge.
land was lush and green. A
He
group
fell
of
upon
children
them
gathered.
with a hip and thigh slaughter, leaving a trail of broken bodies before retreating to a cave in the rock of Etam.
The Philistines marched on Judah,
The fleet
demanding
on the horizon!
their prisoner.
Signal the alarm!
3,000
smoke
men of
rises.
Judah, terrified of their masters, went to the cave. "Don't you realize the Philistines rule over us?" they asked Samson. "We have come to bind you."
Here I am.
"Swear you won't kill me yourselves," Samson replied.
With two brand new ropes and led him toward the Philistine camp at Lehi. As the enemy saw him, they erupted in shouts of triumph. But as they closed in, the
You made a
Spirit of the
fool of
Lord
me!
fell on
You
Samson
lied to
like
me!
a lightning strike. The new ropes on his arms became like charred flax. They simply melted off his wrists.
Samson looked down. There in the dirt lay the fresh jawbone of a donkey. He snatched it up. What followed was a whirlwind of divine violence. One man against 1,000. When the dust settled, Samson stood alone among the heaps of the fallen. "With a donkey's jawbone, I have
seen
made
God.
donkeys of them," he declared. "With a donkey's jawbone, I have killed 1,000 men." Parched and exhausted, he cried out to God, "You have given your servant this great victory. Will I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" In response, God split the earth at Lehi, and a spring of water gushed forth. Samson drank, his spirit revived, and for 20 years he stood as the judge of Israel. Samson's strength was legendary, but his heart remained his greatest
Come
weakness.
back one more time.
In Gaza, the Philistines
Our
surrounded a
God
house
has
where he
delivered
stayed,
Samson, our
waiting
enemy,
to
into
kill
our
him at
hands.
dawn. When Samson rose at midnight, he didn't just break the locks. He tore the massive city gates, posts,
He was the
bars,
start
and
of
all
our deliverance.
straight out of the ground. He heaved them onto his shoulders and carried them to the top of a hill facing Hebron, a mocking display of power that left
It's
the
just a
Philistines
ghost!
trembling.
Then came Delilah. In the valley of Sorek, Samson fell in love. The Philistine lords saw their chance. They offered Delilah a fortune.
We return to
1,100
Zora!
shekels of silver from each ruler to find the secret of his strength. 3 times she pleaded. 3 times
Coax
he
him,
misled
or
her.
we burn you and
with
your
fresh
father's house.
bowstrings, with new ropes.
The temples must be
with
stronger.
The weaving
No
of his
village is
hair
safe.
into
We'll
a
build
lure.
walls that touch the heavens.
Each time she cried, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And each time he snapped his bonds like thread. But Delilah's persistence was a slow poison.
If you tie me
Day
securely
after
with new
day,
ropes that
she
have never been
prodded him,
used, I will lose
questioning
my
his
strength.
love. Finally, sick to death of her nagging, Samson opened his soul. "No razor has ever touched my head," he whispered. "I have been a Nazarite to God from
Be
my
not
mother's
afraid.
womb.
The Lord is with you.
If my head
You are
is
blessed
shaved,
among women.
my strength will leave me, and I will become as weak as any other man." As Samson
He told
slept
us we would
with his
have a
head
son.
in her lap,
A son.
Delilah called for a barber. The 7 braids of his hair fell to the floor. "Samson," she cried, "the Philistines are upon you." He woke, thinking he would shake himself free as before. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him.
The Philistines pounced.
Don't
They
you realize
gouged
the
out his
Philistines rule
eyes
over us?
and led the
What have
mighty
you done to
lion
us?
of Dan in chains
Feel the
to
strength of the
Gaza.
Lord!
He was forced to grind grain into rocks
People of Gaza,
in the dark,
Samson is within our
dank
walls!
prison.
At dawn, we
The
will kill him.
Philistines gathered for a massive sacrifice to their god Dagon. Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands, they boasted. Thousands packed the temple, 3,000 on the roof alone. In their drunken revelry, they shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us!" A boy led the blind, scarred giant into the center of the temple, between the two massive pillars that supported the entire roof. Samson felt the cold stone. His hair, unnoticed by his captors, had begun to grow again. He spoke to the boy. "Place my hands where I can feel
The Rock of Adam
pillars,
awaits. We must
so
go."
that I may
I am
lean
ready.
against them." Samson turned his sightless eyes toward heaven. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God,
We gather as one,
strengthen
brothers.
me
The
just
flame unites
once
us.
more,
Our bond is
and let
eternal,
me, with
forged in this
one
fire."
blow, get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." He braced his right hand on one pillar and his left on the other. He took a deep breath, the Spirit of God rushing into him for the final time. "Let me die with the Philistines."
Samson,
With a
my
mighty
Carter.
heave,
The secret,
the
it's the
pillars
lies that tear go
groaned
apart.
and snapped.
The record of the judges.
foundations
Here,
buckled.
Samson's final
The
deeds.
great
Let us
temple
read
of
it together.
Dagon imploded. A mountain of stone crashing down on the rulers and the thousands within.
You who are
In
barren,
that final act of sacrifice, Samson killed more of the enemy
Quickly
in his
now,
death
for the altar.
than he ever had in his life.
a worthy offering.
With a mighty heave, the pillars groaned and snapped. The foundations buckled. The great temple of Dagon imploded. A mountain of stone crashing down on the rulers
Here,
and the
try this, honey.
thousands
It is
within.
very sweet, Samson.
In that
Indeed.
final act of sacrifice, Samson
Run,
killed
my
more of the
firebrands!
enemy in his death than he ever had in his life. His brothers and his father's whole family went down to the ruins, pulled his body from the rubble, and carried him home. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah, his father. Samson was a man of staggering flaws
Behold,
and
the entrance
devastating
to the
beauty.
Gaza prison!
A reminder that God can use even flawed individuals
Come out,
to
Samson!
accomplish his
The Lord's
purposes.
wish to be entertained!
His hair was his sign, but his heart, in the end, found its way back to the source of strength. He had led Israel 20 years. Through his life, we learn about the importance of faith, the dangers of temptation, and the ultimate sovereignty